Hey y'all, this is aemok,
Madam Hexe,
and kayce,
and this is Trouble Comes in 3. This podcast discusses scandalous topics like communication and sexual health, along with kink, leather, and ethical non-monogamy. If you're under 18, please leave us and check out scarletteen.com. For those over 18, welcome, and let's get naughty.
So, what's on the ballot today?
Today's ballot includes symbols of ownership.
Oh, sexy.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about collars and permanent body modifications and a whole wide range of everything in between.
Right, and even though we shouldn't have to say it, we will. When we say ownership, we mean consensual ownership. Consensual power exchange, that kind of thing. We're going to get that out of the way because we do not want to have to continuously be quantifying the things that we say or qualifying the things that we say. English is hard. Also, champagne is fantastic.
Yes.
So let's get started on probably what I think is the most well-known in both the our world and the vanilla world are the collars. Everyone who's looked at any kind of like erotic fiction or movies or just dared to sneak out of their house one day to a dungeon has seen the hardware.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about, since you two have worn collars, wear collars currently, let's talk a little bit about, from your perspective, what they mean for you and how they impact your day-to-day life.
Yeah. Oh, am I first? Okay.
Yeah,
I was just going to hold the thought.
You
while
held
you
your thought
talked.
first, so I was giving it to you. There you go.
So for me, I love collars. I view them as a thing of commitment. And so before I knew what the lifestyle was, I was always very, very obsessed with weddings.
Okay.
And a lot of people are more familiar with collar type items than they think, because basically a wedding ring is a collar. You're devoting yourself to that person. So collaring in the BDSM sense and the power exchange sense holds a lot of the same sentiment for me. It's that I am at a point where I feel I can commit my long-term future to this person. Okay. Which means it's something that I don't lightly take on. There's a term called Velcro collars. So there are a lot of people out there who, it's new, it's shiny, I'm going to slap a collar on it, but when I don't want it anymore, I'm going to rip the collar off. And so it's kind of like a Velcro collar.
It has less weight.
Symbolically. Some people use that term to define like play collars because they go on for a little bit of time.
Which we'll get into defining.
Yeah. But for me, it's up there with like an engagement. We have chosen that this is the life we want to devote to each other. And so
So if you look at the actual history of like wedding rings,
right.
A lot of people nowadays, it's like, oh, two people binding their love.
This is a property marker.
Yeah.
Back in the old days.
And sometimes still in the modern days.
Yeah, still in the modern days. The ring, guys wouldn't wear rings.
Right.
And
because they're not owned.
They're not. Right. They are the owner. And the bride was property. They were literally
being
for
sold
goods
and
and
services.
traded. And dowries came with the bride to like get you started and such.
Bride price because you bought her.
Yes.
Right. And so it was this commitment, this ownership of you as a woman are going to be my property. You are going to be my wife.
Right.
As the years have gone on in the centuries, it's become more of an idea of what we see now, which is like, oh, two people bringing their lives together and becoming one.
Right. Committing.
But that wasn't where the history of wedding rings came from. I had an amazing professor, Dr. Cozy, during my undergrad, who had a whole discussion about it. Because even though they were in a committed relationship, they refused to wear a ring because of the historical references
I gotcha.
to it. So when you think of it in that context, it is still the same thing.
Yeah.
For us, we're choosing to be in a relationship where we're giving power to someone else, or we're accepting power over someone else.
Yeah.
It's just a bit more socially acceptable.
Right. Right.
To wear a diamond ring as opposed to a padlock. But, to each his own.
I'll take the padlock.
You do wear a padlock. Tell me a little bit, if you don't mind, for our viewers, because they can't see us. Do you want to talk a little bit about, if you're fine to talk about your symbol of ownership?
Yeah. So, I've also previously worn a wedding ring.
Okay.
Not to my guys.
Right. You did have a husband.
I did have a husband.
I don't say regular husband.
He was not. He was kinky.
Right, but you acquired him in the traditional route.
Yes, we acquired our marriage in a traditional sense. So I have had that. And it's funny because whenever I was like stressed out or anything like that, I would fiddle with my wedding ring.
It's like a comfort.
My collar has become the same thing
mechanism
for me. I wear a collar with my Sir and my Alpha. I had a collar that was really simple when I was in consideration. And it was just a dog tag that my Sir picked out for me. It was super pretty. It was black, but it had like lilies on the front of it, which was so cute because a lot of people have that style tag, but they're all like very masculine.
Very butch.
Very butch.
And militant, you know.
Yeah. And I am a femish.
She's like, I'm a femme at heart.
I am a femme at heart. I'm not good at makeup or my hair.
But in the
inside, I see myself as femme.
Right.
And so it was really sweet. I wore my collar that was just a little dog tag on a ball chain for about a year. And then they kind of upgraded me.
Okay.
For a short period of time with a family chainmail collar.
Okay.
That still had the
Clasp closure?
It wasn't a clasp closure. My tag was looped through it.
Okay.
To bring the two together.
Cute.
Oh, that's good.
So it was still consideration. And then about a month later, I was presented with the collar that I currently wear.
Right.
That you'll see in pictures of me when you see it. It is a chainmail collar done in our family's pattern. So our family has a specific pattern that all of the S-types get, and it's generational, like, in the family.
It's long term.
Yeah. So, but it's the same pattern. He gets to play with the colors. Mm-hmm. So he did mine in black and gray.
Oh, you're flagging.
Because those are my top two flagging colors.
Oh, that's very sweet.
He tried to find teal because that's my absolute favorite color.
They're hard to find.
Me too.
It's like the best. Also, CBT is super fun.
Oh, that's what I thought we were talking about?
No, it's just her favorite color. But she
I
was like, girl, because I flag teal all day.
I flag teal too. However,
sorry, she just likes the color as well. All right,
it's also just happens to be my favorite color in real life.
Okay, I'll just keep this up.
In like always life.
Okay, got you.
But we couldn't find any like good ones. They were all like kind of blue, not really like teal or
turquoise. If you're gonna do it, go do it proper.
So my other choice was gray.
Right.
So he surprised me. I actually wasn't sure what colors he was choosing. Mm-hmm. So when I was formally collared, this one was presented to me to wear, and I wear a lock on it.
It's like a regular ass padlock, guys.
Mm-hmm.
This is not
There's
like
a
some
reason
jewelry.
that it's a padlock. We started with a really simple silver lock. Mm-hmm. It was super cute. Little silver. What you see a lot of times in photos of like cute S-types wearing little colors. The little silver ones. It wasn't a toy color, but it was just a very simple one.
Think about the Tiffany company like heart locket kind of shape.
Except for like
normal
like lock
square.
shape,
lock
but
shape,
that kind of like
kind
finish.
of daintiness, yeah.
Yeah, it was dainty. My body apparently hates them because even the ones.
Or did you have a reaction to it?
No, she ate it.
My body ate them. It literally
like corroded it.
And like dissolved. And we tried to use a shipping. Or, not shipping, but like travel lock that you get for like TSA and things like
for
that.
The suitcase.
Yeah, nope, those are not made to be worn regularly.
Oof, no.
I broke that too.
Jesus. So what did you end up with as far as padlock goes?
So this is actually a master lock.
Master lock, like for the fence.
Yep.
Yes.
But it's a little bit smaller. It's small. It's dainty enough to not like weigh you down like a cow.
No, it's about the size of, this one is about the size of like maybe a quarter-ish.
Yeah, a quarter, $50.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
and it's about a 1/4 inch thick. It's not super heavy.
Obtrusive or anything like that.
No. We had to shorten it a little bit because what I found was when I was doing deadlifts at the gym, it would come up and bop me in the nose.
No, that's not good.
So we shortened it a little bit so it sits a little more closely to my like collarbones.
I'd like to get swole without knocking my teeth out.
Yeah. I mean, it was really funny. But
First few swings.
First few swings, yeah. So for me, with our dynamic, I don't have to wear mine all the time.
Right. Okay.
I choose to because it makes me feel really connected to them, and it reminds me that no matter where my brain is going, my guys are still there for me.
So just like you used to fiddle with your wedding
And all the time I fiddle with it.
Yeah.
And I legit wear it pretty much always. Even when I was in the hospital recently, I wore it
short of
for
an MRI.
everything except for like MRI and surgery.
Right. Sure.
I took it off of that, but legitimately as soon as I was remotely awake, I remember still being very, very intoxicated from anesthesia, and I got my collar back on.
Asked for it.
Like, I knew where it was, and I was like digging around with one hand.
You needed them in that
moment. And I was like, and I got it back on. So they're very much a part of you sometimes.
Right, yeah. Do you have something to add to that?
I fidget with mine too. So so aemok has a locking collar. And that for me, that's when, for easy terms, that's kind of when you hit the wedding point, like the wedding ceremony point of that's, okay, you are now committed to that person. And there are stages that come before it, like with the collar of consideration, before she had the lock on it, things like that. And so I haven't made it to the locking collars.
Right,
yet,
in your journey.
In my journey. It is a goal for me, just like being a slave is a goal for me if you've listened to past podcasts from us. But I have had a few other things, and so, but I do play with them a lot, and so.
Before we jump into that, write it down so you don't lose it, but I think maybe we should explain what consideration and training.
Oh, let's do that.
Just because we're gonna use them.
That's your note. You've got a note. Okay, good.
Oh, is that your note?
I have my note written down, but like I was kind of going to go into them because I've had
go for it.
The preface to the locking collars.
Gotcha. I thought you meant like other devices.
No,
and I was like,
no, just before.
Okay. Sorry. She knew what she was talking about. I didn't know what she was talking about.
It's okay. I wasn't good.
We're not minded. She took the pad. We couldn't see.
I'm sorry. And so I started off with my first partner with ownership jewelry, which we didn't qualify as a type of collar. If anything, I would say it's like a step below, like a consideration collar.
Now, were these for your long distance relationships?
Yes.
Okay.
So it was,
which I think is good to note.
Yeah. So it was for a long distance. So it wasn't necessarily, there was no earning it. It's once we decided to enter a dynamic of any sorts, like just we started the dynamic relationship, he sent me ownership jewelry. And it's not to say like that he's collaring me, but it's to say that here is a reminder because I can't be with you,
right? That
you can touch in the moment. So I got things like toe rings or a body chain, things like that, where I could wear them easily in my day-to-day life and like touch if I got anxious or needed that reminder, or got the text of, hey, look at your toe ring and think of me, things like that. Okay, to like kind of re-ground myself into, especially because that's my first dynamic. It takes some, even if it's what I want, it takes some form of getting used to, oh, I'm doing these things for somebody else, not just for myself anymore.
Right.
And so, and then in my last dynamic, I got into kind of a collar of consideration and then sort of like a training collar. Okay. And so there's a little bit of back and forth on which one comes first. Some people say hardcore training collar comes first, and then I'll put you in a collar of consideration, and then you move to a full collar. I do it backwards, so a collar of consideration is first because you're considering someone before you put the effort in to train and fine-tune them to your liking. Okay. So then it would go training collar and then like a permanent collar or a locking collar, whatever form you want after that.
Can I interrupt for just 1 second? So I'm hearing the word training, and is it most common in the States for training to do certain things, behave a certain way, like how I want you to perform? Is that what we're using as a definition for training here?
That's how I use the definition.
For
me, I use it for that, and that's why it's after consideration, because it's, do I really want, is this person a match for me?
Right.
And then if I think, yes, this person could be a match for me, then I'm training that person how to perform to my liking. Okay. There's kind of a wider scale that does, they consider like training first. Like you need to train to become a submissive, and then I'll consider you as my submissive.
So for me, like from a German maybe / continental Europe perspective, the word training collar has more to do with getting used to wearing something all the time, not your skill set.
Okay.
Like a training bra,
Okay.
right? When you're learning to wear a bra and put it on as your breasts grow and things like that. The training collar is to get used to, particularly if you're somebody that doesn't wear jewelry and you're having to wear something now 24/7, figuring out what materials work. Like your skin ate that material.
I went through 7 locks.
That's a lot
before
of
we
locks.
found the
You know,
best
like
lock.
materials that work for you, for your lifestyle. And, you know, in my case, my current slave, we had a long distance relationship to start. He commuted from another state, 10 hours to come see me because he's a good boy.
He is.
But he has a very outdoor lifestyle. He worked in the outdoors, so we needed to think of something that could survive the outdoors for days in the woods. Sweat, water, rain, sunshine, wind, all these things.
Sweat.
Skin, oil, all this grossness, dirt, dirty boys playing in dirt and things like that. So we had found a material. I think we set up chainmail because, you know, it's, you can shower with it, you can swim with it. It's nigh indestructible pretty much. But the training for him was getting used to wearing a necklace. Because he never really wore necklaces as jewelry, as a fashion choice. And now he would training not only to wear them, but sleep with them, wear them all the time, adjust to having it. It's a little itchy at first until you adjust.
It's a weight to
it.
It's
Is.
weighty. There's a weight to
it's
it.
weighty.
It's comforting sometimes, but when you're not used to it, it can be a little anxiety.
You feel a little bit like you're choking sometimes. So for us, training is learning just to wear the device. And then less on your skill set. For me, consideration is where I've decided, yes, I like this human. Whether you have skills or not, for some reason I have selected this human. And your in consideration is your period of where, like, your wooing stage.
Yes.
Where you're learning how...
It's like the courtship stage.
Yeah, like, you may know how to make coffee, but you know how to make it like I like it. So that's how we just differentiate there. So just so that I'm on the same page with everybody.
So I have, in my experience, I have seen people use training more of like, there are partners that use it, how Kaitlyn has experienced. There are also people who use it in, you're coming to a person for a specific type of training so that, you know, future partner, like, you have the goal of finding this later.
I don't want to say the word grooming, but preparing.
In the positive sense of the word.
Not the creepy sense, you know what I mean? Because you say groom dogs.
You're teaching. It's more like teaching, not grooming.
Yeah, grooming sounds a bit...
Grooming is creepy and stalky. No, it's more of a teaching thing. For us, for my family, we didn't necessarily have a training period per se. I had nothing that I wore for the 4 months that we were going back and forth and deciding, like, do we want to... Do we think we can pursue this? Do we think this might be a good match? Like, what do we... You know, what are our needs? What are their needs? And everything. During that period, I didn't have any kind of anything.
No item, no artifact.
It wasn't until they offered me my collar of consideration where it was making the consideration period
more
formal.
I gotcha.
We are actually, like, we're not just talking about it, we're not just negotiating the base terms, but we're actually doing the thing.
Right.
Some people have very strict cutoffs.
Like
you
time
have
periods.
to, you have to wear it for 6 months or a year, or you have to renew 3 times.
I'm very go with what your pace is going.
But I am a fan of minimums.
Yes, minimums, yes, but
Depending
I don't like
on how much time you spend
gives
with them.
it gives you
A basis of comparison.
Yeah. We didn't have a set time.
Right.
But we're also a little older and a little more experienced in lifestyle. I've been in DSs before. I wasn't necessarily of the, like, oh, let me run as fast as I possibly can to the finish line.
Frenzy's a bitch.
No. I've done that in the past. Not the best decision.
Right.
So I was prepared for a year or more with them.
It shows commitment.
Yeah.
A lot of membership clubs of any kind take about a year of, you know, what do you say, like
just
attendance,
like
prospecting or attendance or...
So our consideration lasted about 13 months total.
Okay.
Not counting the first 4 months of negotiation and such. And during that time, that's when I was learning, you know, how Sir likes his coffee. Right. How Alpha does not like his coffee.
Right.
Little things like that, you know, how they like to have their boots tied or shined and things like that. That was done during consideration.
Yeah.
When I actually received my formal collar, that was the like, yep, we're doing this thing. And it was honestly on both sides. Like, I felt they were an amazing match for myself.
Right.
And they thought I was an amazing match for them.
Yes.
Right. It is a two-way street.
I've turned down collars before because I didn't feel the relationship was where it needed to be for that, what that signified to me in a relationship.
And
if we've only been talking for 2 months and you're like, I want to collar you as my sub, I'm like,
and it's important that both sides of the slash feel empowered to make that judgment for themselves.
Yeah.
Because it is a two-way street.
yes.
And
I might have a highway and you might have a bike path, but it's two ways.
Yes.
so for me, and I think for Kaitlyn as well, like, our formal collars are very, very committed.
Yes.
It's the I'm not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yes.
I'm not necessarily like a forever thing because things happen.
Yeah.
And that's how life
I'm
is.
a
But
now.
I
Yes.
have,
Foreseeable future.
for the foreseeable future, I can't see anything that would change my mind.
Yes.
Kind of commitment.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
I will also say another collar that gets thrown around a lot is day collar.
Day collar, yeah. Tell me
Yes.
a little bit about that.
So
It kind of ties into my next thing because, like, so
Okay.
I've held two kind of like actual collars outside of like the ownership jewelry that I had mentioned a little bit earlier. And so I had a consideration collar in my last relationship,
Right.
and it was a leather 3-ring collar, and so you see it a lot as like a play collar as well because people will wear them during scenes because.
Right.
They can be hooked to a leash, things like that.
they're a little heavier and
they're a little
weightier
heavier.
and flashy.
Yeah, they're very flashy.
They're
yeah.
noticeable.
Yeah.
It's the size of
Not
my
settable.
neck. Yeah.
I
it's
actually have a teal one.
oh,
Not
pretty.
from my guys, but
Yeah,
I do
but
have
pretty.
a teal one.
And so that was my kind of like color of consideration when I was with my last partner. And that was also a big moment because I had been in consideration for a while with him. And that was kind of like I think this could really go somewhere when he presented that to me. And it was a really big moment. And it was something that I had always kind of like hoped and dreamed for because
Right.
it was that next step towards that kind of forever collar, that permanent collar. And then I also, in the kind of like a day collar, but not really. So I couldn't wear that collar everywhere because
Right.
that is a very noticeable collar. And while work is pretty accepting of my lifestyle, that probably would have been crossing the line.
Right. Know your audience.
Yes. And so, but I actually ended up during the time we were together about 4 or 5 months after I entered my consideration period with him, I ended up getting my belly button pierced for him.
Because you had a thing for belly buttons.
Because he has a thing for belly buttons. And it was something where it wasn't super, super permanent. It wasn't like getting a tattoo for him. If I take it out, the hole will close.
Right.
Like, that's a thing. And it was something that I had wanted in the past anyways, just never been inclined to do. And so that sort of became my day collar. And so it's something that you can wear day to day without the vanilla or the public eye necessarily creeping on it or offending anyone because you do have to know your audience when you're at places.
Right.
And so,
I'm
like,
a big fan of consent for the public.
yes. And
Maybe
so
these
it's
involved.
something that a lot of people have. And there are also day collars that can go around your neck. Like, they look like necklaces to the naked eye, but they might have O-rings on them, which is kind of like... It's a really weird thing because they recently became a super big, like, fashion trend. And you're like... But are you or
Shall
aren't you?
Shall I say that the Gothic and alternative fashion trend has had it since the 70s?
Oh,
But
yes.
it's
They have.
mainstream.
But the
Insta
smaller,
fashion.
more dainty ones
Dainty
have
because
become...
it's like circles are for infinity and
Yeah.
infinity's for love.
Things
and
like
blah, blah,
that.
blah, blah.
I think something to remember there are also people who use play collars.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
I use play collars. I will sometimes even take off my boys' dog tags because they flop around in a scene.
Yeah.
They're not like
Right.
super, but I'll keep them safe. You know, and give him like a thick fuck off posture collar to play with. 'Cause
Yeah.
Remind me to tell you about the posture collar. That's also a purse.
Yes.
Go ahead. What do you have?
I need
love
it.
it.
I have for
I
play
need it.
collars.
So play collars So all of these collars that we're talking about, they can be made of anything.
Yes.
We happen to have chainmail, but I have worn leather collars. I have worn
Gold
chain collars that are like necklace chain.
Yeah.
I've worn it in other
any material.
puppy collars, kitten collars, especially if you're into pet play.
Yeah, with the bells and the bows and all that.
So there's that kind of play collar where we're going to wear it for a scene or we're going to wear it out to the party, but it's not necessarily an ownership.
Right.
No.
All of those...
It's an accessory.
It's an accessory.
That enhances.
Which is totally cool, too.
Yeah.
I had a disagreement with somebody one time.
Oh, I'm ready for this.
Yes.
About physical collars and day collars in particular. So I was brought up or trained or whatever. I had a previous sir who told me, and it really stuck, the collar is just a symbol of the relationship.
Yes.
Whether you have the collar on or not doesn't mean our relationship is that you're not in service to me.
Right.
Which
I own your body, mind, and soul. That doesn't change whether you have around your neck. It's just a nice little physical reminder.
Right. Not everyone feels that way.
Oh, okay.
Some people feel that if they don't have something that they can wear 24/7, that they're not really in a dynamic.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, whatever works for you, I guess.
Right. But for me, my day collars have always been something that was inconspicuous, that I could wear someplace.
But you know what it is
And
for yourself.
I know what it is.
It's kind of fun having your own
and that's all that matters.
as well.
Right. I don't have necessarily a day collar now because I can wear my chainmail collar all the time.
Right.
But if I worked in an industry where this wasn't something I could get away with, that would be a discussion with the guys. But even if I had to not wear anything at all, if I was in medical field or something like that, where I couldn't wear anything around my neck, I'm not any less connected to them.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
That, and I know people that use things that aren't necessarily... There's a really, like, big quote that goes around, like, on the Pinterest boards for, like, DS and stuff, when you can get, like, a little racy, but not super racy. It's things like, a collar is a collar, or a collar is not always around the neck.
Right.
And so people use anklets, people use bracelets. I know a couple that uses a specific hairpin. So every day she has like this one little pearl like bobby pin among her other bobby pins when she wears her hair up.
Okay.
I know couples that one of the partners is a nurse and can't really wear jewelry and stuff. And so the difference for her is when she's at work, her hair is up and that's her version of a collar.
Okay.
And then when she's at home, she has her normal collar on.
Gotcha.
I've had bracelets from like Things Remembered.
Oh, yeah.
Little,
the store, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
the
cute
store.
store.
I've had anklets. I've had magnetically locking pin drop
Okay. Yeah.
cuffs for a long time since I did circus for years and years until I got hurt in circus. I had cuffs because my regular locking bracelet from Things Remembered, I couldn't get it on and off regularly because I can't wear it when I'm doing silks, right? It's problematic when you're doing like contortion and things like that too.
Right.
So I ended up, my sir at the time got me, they're just solid silver, like they look like big, thick, chunky bracelets.
Like bangles?
Yeah, kind of like bangles.
Like bangles, except for it's like an inch thick.
Okay. Yeah.
Or inch wide. And it had a magnetic pin drop in the back of it. And then I've also had partners who have given me like the sleigh bells on the ankle or something like that as well.
So I think our opinion, I think, is that it doesn't necessarily have to look like a traditional neck collar. It doesn't have to be very severe looking. It doesn't have to be any of the things that we think about when we immediately think about it, as long as it means something to the person wearing it.
Yes.
I think it was Diamond. She's an amazing pony from down south.
She is.
Oh, I love her.
So pretty.
She is.
Such a pretty pony.
She is pretty.
But also, #slave goals.
Right? So I was talking, or she was in a class speaking one time, and she had said something about the different designs of collars and how for her and her traditions, the thicker collars are worn early on in relationships, and then the more the relationship has developed and become that like relationship goal, like DS goal, the daintier the chain goes, because it's
you're
an
refining
idea of like
yourself.
It's it only takes the gentlest tug
to get you
to do what you need.
That, though. That's
and I
cool.
was like, oh, I like it.
That's sexy. I like that.
Yes. I was also in that class.
That's
and
pretty sexy.
That was a
so
good class.
good.
Thank you, Slave Diamond, for that titillating bit of information.
Yes.
Master Oakman and Slave Diamond.
Yes.
If you are in South Florida, check them out.
Yes. I think they attended one of their protocol classes.
Yes. We were in that class together.
Were we?
Yes.
Good for us.
Good dungeon.
There you go.
At the FPE, I was avoiding you. Anywho.
All right.
But
Moving on. So we've covered traditional colors, some like alternatives and things like that. Let's get more severe. Let's talk about permanent colors. Things like body modification, that kind of stuff. What is your opinion on that? In general, I guess.
I have like a love-hate relationship with them in my head.
Okay.
I absolutely love the idea. However,
it is permanent.
they are generally fairly permanent.
Yes.
Not so much with like piercings. Piercings
you can
pop
take out, yeah.
depending on where they're located and how big they are.
You might scar, but you live.
Yeah, it'll mostly go away. So piercings, not nearly as much of like a concern for me because it's a removable thing.
Yeah.
When it comes to branding, scarification, or tattoos, those are very, very permanent. It costs a lot of money to even remotely try to fade them. Not even get them, like get rid of them, but fade them. They can also be really dangerous.
Yes. Depending on how they're done.
Right. If you're doing a branding and the person who's doing it doesn't know what the hell they're doing.
You have an expensive hospital bill on top of everything else.
Right.
Yes. Gangrene.
And like nasty scars that are not
remotely
sexy,
what you
not
want.
remotely what you were looking for. However, I also love them.
Right. I love the theory of it.
Yes.
But there's a lot of precautions to take around this kind of endeavor.
And I'm also of the opinion that very, very, very few relationships are for forever.
Right.
I know that at some point, Sir and Alpha and I might shift. I'm not thinking it's coming anytime soon, but it might someday.
Right.
So
you can never know what the world holds.
right.
Yeah.
So, I think it would come down to me if you don't mind having something on you forever, even if you're not with that person, knock yourself out.
Yeah.
So my ex-husband and I have talked about it numerous times about getting some sort of matching tattoo. And the rule was, and this is the same kind of rule that I bring into if I will receive a permanent mark on my body, is it something that I can connect with and that's important to me after this relationship is over? I am a solid no names person.
Oh, no names.
DS
No
or
initials?
vanilla, if there are names or initials involved. If it's not your kid,
Yeah.
and maybe your mama,
Right.
then no. Don't put names on me.
No.
That's like an immediate, like, this relationship is over.
Right now,
very
because you made
soon.
such a foolish decision.
Right.
What'd you have, Kaitlyn? You have your snoot.
Are you done? Okay. I didn't want to cut
just
you off.
jump in.
I've actually discussed with one partner before, not to have at that time, but way down the road, having a tattoo as a permanent color. Because both of us love tattoos. He is fucking covered in tattoos. I have a few, and want more. But we had similar things. It was a lot of my limits were no names, no initials. It had to be something that I would be okay with having and had meaning to me beyond just the dynamic. Even if that dynamic was a large part of my life, it took up chunks of my time, and I'm okay having it moving forward. So something with symbolisms like animals or things like that would remind, just because one of his nicknames was Bear, and so like we talked about like bear paw prints and things like that, because For the naked eye, you could
still jive with an animal spirit,
Yes.
even if you weren't with him. So you could still kind of ride that wave a little bit.
And so, but for me, we had even talked, kind of like discussed like minimums that we would be okay with someone even like bringing the idea to us. And so one of the things that it's kind of just stuck with me because I was made to thought long and hard about it.
Right.
And it's just kind of stuck with me like, no, I still hold true to what I had told to that previous partner is I see it for something kind of as like a continuation or even like a renewal. Like people will renew their vows so many years into marriage to kind of remind each other, this is the commitment we made. We still want to be in this. Let's have this thing to remind ourselves that we want to keep moving forward in this direction. And so I kind of said it would almost be kind of like that. And so I've maybe been colored to this person for 5, 6, 7 years.
I gotcha. Okay.
And we're ready to, even if the year after, 2 years after that point, we split, they've had a large portion of my life. Mm-hmm. And they're still always going to mean something to me.
Right.
And so at that point, it's not just some 3-month fling online where let's do this thing, slap a collar on you, you're mine, get this tattooed, okay, bye, peace out.
Right.
And you're now left feeling brokenhearted for something that didn't really have that much investment in your life.
Mm-hmm. I have it in my contract. It's a hard limit without negotiation.
Yes.
Right.
It's no intentional permanent markings because we do edge play. We do
Needles,
things that we do needles,
scritchies. These things sometimes scar accidentally.
I'm super clumsy, so like I've hurt myself during scenes with like knives.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoopsie.
Because like I just wiggled the wrong way.
Right.
So no intentional permanent markings.
Yeah.
Without prior discussion.
Yeah.
I'm not.
He's the same way. My slave's the same way.
Yeah. I'm not opposed to it. Like
But talk to me first.
But yeah, talk to me first.
I want to know exactly what I'm getting into.
I mean, I love tattoos and piercings.
Yes.
Right. But like
So
I
much
want
fun.
it to mean something even afterwards.
Yes.
You know.
Or give me a gift card ahead of time for laser removal.
Right.
Or a cover up. Better yet, a cover up.
Yeah, a cover up. Just get that don't work. Brandings. I've never branded anybody. I have had people pierce themselves. You've branded somebody?
I haven't branded anybody.
I was about to say, whoa, pour the champagne.
I have had temporary brandings done with very specific attachments on violent ones where they have
like
less
cell popping.
Yeah.
kind of like cell popping.
yeah.
So it has the ability to scar, but my body heals really fast. I think I only really have like 2 scars, and so I have bought them for that. And there are things where I really like scarification.
Okay.
It's a kink of mine, so I'm okay with it outside of the ownership sense, as long as the design is something I consent to.
Right, that's the thing. I'm a terrible artist. That's why people are like, oh, decorative cutting, do it deep. I'm like, oh, you're going to have tic-tac-toe back here because I am. You see these beautiful mandalas that scar and they heal, and they're just like, no, I can't do that. So, no. I can do a stick man, maybe.
That's cute.
And something that will look like a rectangle and another circle, and I'm like, it's his dog. You can't tell?
I love it. Well, please. Well, I will totally have it.
Light cutting so that you don't scar forever with like a hot dog on your back.
If it's for you, I'll do it.
Right. But see, negotiations. But no, but like I really like scarification. I like cutting. I like blood.
Right.
So for me, that is a risk that I have inherited from the types of play I like and the things I like. It's an assumed risk, so I'm not upset about it. I think I still have a scar from my first scene ever on my calf. But to me, it's the intent behind it. You're not doing that to me at this moment to be like, I own you, this is mine.
Scratch.
If you ever look at my sir's shoulder, like or upper arm,
His bicep.
yes, his guys.
Hold on, let me just
sit
get closer. Yes.
I think it's on his left side. He has his skin marks really fucking quick. Mm-hmm. He has a cell popping scar that is from like 8 years ago.
Oh,
so while it is generally temporary,
you know,
it's not always temporary.
It's not always.
Buyer beware.
I heal very quickly.
So buyer beware.
I was warned that it would probably last about 3 or 4 months when they did it. It lasted about 2 weeks, and I was really upset. Actually,
they didn't do it hard enough.
Yeah, It was a really light one.
But I always would rather err on the side of caution.
Yes.
I'd always rather tell you, even if you're like, no, I want it to last long, look, it could last as long as this.
Yes.
You know, it's kind of like customer service.
It's like,
oh,
yeah.
it'll be there in a week. It arrives in 3 days. Oh, this is amazing.
Right.
Like, I'd rather like
Exactly.
give your expectations towards reality.
Yeah. But for me, that's something that
But would
I
you
like
consider
outfit.
like scarification for an ownership?
I would.
It's a symbol of ownership.
I think I would. And same rules apply as like tattoos. They will go for
Stick
brand.
man.
Oh, really? Like go for branding.
Little martini glass.
Any sort of.
You could do a martini.
A teacup.
Well, that no, but
That has a curve.
No, I can't. It's gonna
I
be
could
a
do a
triangle.
curve.
Yeah, she got
Yeah,
a smiley
she's
face
got the
from our
curves.
last cutting
Endeavor.
ritual.
Yes.
But like a little triangle and a stick, another stick, martini glass.
Yes. Not opposed.
Okay.
But no, I would consider it for
As a
symbol of ownership because, again, it's going to go along the premises of it's going to more be something like an intricate design, even if it's the tattoo or something like that. Actually, going back to tattoos, something that I'm really a fan of because while it is very indicative of like a very specific thing, it's not a name or an initial. There is actually a slave registry where you get your own barcode. And for me...
Oh, like a Barbie doll.
Like a Barbie doll. And so for me, I actually really like it because the thing is, you
Who
can...
maintains this list?
It's an online registry, and we'll put the link in the show notes.
Okay, you should. I'm
But the
curious
thing
about
is,
this.
you can register as the property of so-and-so, but should that relationship end and you get into a new dynamic, the registry can be transferred.
Oh, it's
And
transferable.
so it goes from person to person.
It's like
so
real,
it has
it's
that...
like real property, though. You can transfer your property.
And so it has that very deep meaning, especially in the sense of the lifestyle.
That's fantastic.
But it can be transferred from relationship to relationship, and you don't have that sour taste of, well, this was my ex-partner of 8 years, the relationship ended badly. It can take
it's
on the
your
new...
number.
It's
It's
your
not-
number.
It's
It's
slave
not...
number, not
Yes.
a dynamic number. Oh, yeah, I think that's
So
fantastic.
I'm not opposed to getting a barcode
like
on it.
barcoded, like... Is there like a
Blum,
QR
blum,
code?
blum, 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 blum.
I'm not trying to belittle it. I think I should think
No,
it's
it's cute.
Yeah.
But it made us talking about that made me think of it because it is something that, if anything like that, would be a big thing for me.
If they're done well, they can actually scan.
I
know
you can
this
pull them up.
because I scanned my ex-husband.
So
What did it come up with?
Error code.
Oh, error code.
He wasn't
Error code,
registered, obviously.
$6.99. $6.99 a pound. I love you. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. I think as a D type for a minute, to talk about some of these permanent colors or even just the symbolism, and then we touched a little bit on about like the difference for me, like training versus consideration versus ownership. I definitely agree with both of you. If I'm offering someone an ownership color, I'm in for the long haul.
yeah.
Okay, if you're one of my little internet pigs, you're not getting a color. Like, you can buy yourself something and be like, oh, I belong to so-and-so. That's fine. I don't care. Send your money. Whatever. But, like, if you're in my life,
Yes.
it's essentially an engagement ring for me as well. I support that. Alternative jewelry, for me as well, I agree. Whatever fits your lifestyle as far as, like, your work goes. I had a prior kitten. She was a nurse. Or she was a CNA at the time. She's finishing her nursing license.
Shout out to kittens.
Shout out
Yes.
to my kitten.
Yeah, you.
Jackson.
All the scritches.
Still miss you. Couldn't wear pieces to work for safety. So, you know, she just had to, like, she was the color. You know what I mean?
Yep.
She was the, you know, the relationship
Your mind is
didn't
your binding
change.
color.
Yeah, the relationship didn't change just because she can't wear whatever bells she wants to wear. And I like piercings and tattoos for the same reason. It's kind of like piercings, tattoos, and branding for me is like a little bit like so tattoos feels a little bit like enhancing the body, but I'm gonna step into the role of like proprietorship for a minute. I am allowed to deface something because it belongs to me, even if defacing it makes it more beautiful.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Even if adding color or shape or design or texture.
It's your right to mold it to whatever you see as beautiful.
Yeah, it's kind of. Or even if I just because I can. You know what I mean? And that's sometimes the best reason for both sides is that because I can. I'm not a fan of names and initials again because it's a bit like, ooh, it's kind of, for me, I'm like it's a bit woo-woo. But if you wanted, titles are fine with, because if you move into somebody else that still has sir or ma'am or whatever, you can get away with it a little more, but I would still feel weird.
I'm a little touchy about that, because what if that person shifts
sides of
within
the slash
themselves?
Yeah.
So now they identify as a switch or a dominant or an S-type.
It's a personal choice.
Titles in there.
For me, I don't mind. If someone wanted to tattoo themselves with ma'am or something like that, or madam, or honestly, I don't care. People sometimes call me sir or daddy. For me, it doesn't matter. It's not like I'm not struggling with
daddy.
I'm not. There for people that struggle with feeling validated in their gender or gender expression, I could see where that would be a problem. I don't have those kinds of issues, so for me personally, wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
But I can see where somebody might, if they're going through something, this might be a problem for them to see it repeatedly. It's a personal choice.
Like,
yeah.
I'm not tattooing anything on me, but
Right.
you know, like, again, shit happens. But at the end of the day, you can always cover it up. It's not free to do that.
No.
But like you evolve, your skin can too.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So things like that. I mean, Brandy, you're kind of stuck with that because you have a big smudge on you. But the defacement aspect.
Yeah.
Some would argue it's an enhancement, but you are,
Yeah.
you know, whether it's you're poking holes in them, or you're burning them, or you're stabbing them a bunch of times with needles, which is what a tattoo is, you're defacing the flesh, you know, in a way that is both sacred and, you know, a little mischievous.
Yeah.
I think you're changing that person's identity a little bit. You know, my slave has no tattoos and no piercings, and he's open to the idea of a permacollar being a tattoo. That would be the first bit of ink on his blank canvas.
He's so, like,
Wholesome.
Like, wholesome boy next door.
Right?
And then I'm like,
Damn.
oh, I know the shit you get into.
I know the shit you're into. Yeah, exactly. So it's a bit like, ooh.
I was shocked when I found out he had no tattoos or piercings.
No
I was
tattoos
like,
and
none
piercings.
at all?
No tattoos and piercings. You have a thought? And then I think we should talk about our next icky topic a little bit.
I don't remember my
You don't remember your thought?
No.
Well, I'm going to ask you an icky question.
Oh, God. I'm
Let's
not
move
ready
on
for
to
it.
for our S-types in the room. And even for me, really.
I might cry, just to
That's
preface.
okay. The time in between colors. Or in between whatever ownership item. When we have dissolved a dynamic, or we're still searching, when we were first searching for this relationship, for this piece of validation.
For myself, when I came out of, it was a long-term relationship. It was about 3 or 4 years. It was before the guys, and it was my last, like, serious relationship before the guys. When I first came out of that, I was in a rough spot, like, emotionally and mentally and everything, because not only had my DS dissolved, but my vanilla relationship with that person also dissolved, and we owned a house together.
Whoopsie.
So it was a little
That adds a
interesting.
whole different level to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Good for you.
It does. And I needed ways to still feel useful. Because I was firm in that this person was not going to continue to receive the benefits of having an S-type if
You didn't do what you needed.
you're not my actual sir.
No, yeah, why should you?
They thought otherwise.
Okay.
Because we were still living together. But for me, what I found that really helped me feed that servicey side of myself was working at community events.
Okay.
Which I already did, but I, like, amped
Threw
it
yourself
up.
in.
And when it came to, like, the daily in-between, I got myself a mala bead bracelet.
Okay. Like, was this like prayer bead or something?
They're like prayer beads.
Okay.
It's a specific type of bracelet. You go along the beads and you count them. It's a meditation.
Okay, to
thing.
like focus or something? Okay.
So I got one, and I was like, I bought it specifically for me. It had chakras on. Some of the stones were chakras. Some of them were just this really beautiful wood. And the cool thing about mala beads is that they're impermanent. The whole point is that you do these meditations with them, and then at some point, mysteriously, they just break.
They fall apart.
And, like, that's the whole point.
You
Is
don't
that
need them anymore, huh?
They just break when the time comes. So I really liked that because it was almost like a collar to myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to keep myself safe until the time comes.
There you go. I like that.
And
also taught you about impermanence, which is good as well.
Yeah. Shout out to my ex-husband, because that's why I knew about these things. It was also really useful because I already knew about them, but then they became a fad and they were like all over Etsy.
Like, oh, well, this is easy to get now.
Great. No, I can get them really, like, a really cute one for a reasonable price.
Right, because they're so popular.
Yeah. But I wore that for about 2 years, and I would fiddle with it. I would play with it. It came on and off as needed, but it was always like my reminder to myself that just because I don't have somebody else's collar doesn't mean I'm any less of a submissive.
You're not any less valuable.
Yeah.
I'm not less valuable. I'm not less useful. Interestingly enough, it broke right at about the same time. Thinking back now, it actually broke. Not that I met the guys, but when the guys and I started taking it serious and like starting the discussions about what we want to do and things like that.
It was time.
Like that first year together. Before the consideration, actually spending time.
But it was like, I have to let go.
But it was like,
I have to let go in order to move forward, right?
Yes. I was so sad because the stones were really pretty, and I was hoping that like at some point I would keep the stones, but it exploded while I was on my motorcycle at a gas station.
Well, then you definitely don't need it.
Vibration sugar. the whole band that the beads were run through just disintegrated, and I shot precious stones across the
entire hope you got insurance. That's fine.
Yeah.
All right.
So
I like that. That's good though.
Yeah.
Kaitlyn.
Oh God. So,
Because you're in a fresh spot. So.
I am. So my last dynamic was the first dynamic I've ever held a collar.
Okay.
So that in itself was very meaningful to me. After about 3 years being together and about 2 years having a collar, we made the decision to dissolve our dynamic.
Wow.
We were still trying, at the time we were still moving forward with a vanilla relationship, but we made the decision to dissolve our dynamic. And for me, that came with a very hard thing. And if I'm not going to lie, because I like honesty, I like being open, I like everyone that's listening being able to see that they're not alone in things, but I stopped wearing my collar about 6 months before we actually even discussed possibly dissolving our dynamic. Formally discussed it. And it was something that wasn't really noticed, which only kind of further drove
I see that a lot in relationships that are dissolving.
Yeah. And so it was one of those things where it obviously didn't hold that much meaning to them anymore if they didn't even notice that essentially their property was no longer wearing what symbolized them as theirs, that they've worn every day for the past 2 years.
I've never been in that situation, in that type of situation, but I would like to think I'd noticed.
It was
like
it
I'm
was
used
hard.
to seeing it every day.
The thing for me was, it took me about 2 months to notice I didn't have it on.
Yeah.
Because I had taken it off for just like a reaction for something, and because it wasn't a locking collar, I had free will to take it on and off as I pleased. It had a simple clasp on it as a necklace would. Because at that point we had moved from the leather collar to a more acceptable like day collar style,
right,
so the chainmail collar.
Yeah.
And so it was.
Sorry.
But it was hard because when I realized I wasn't wearing it, I realized that they didn't notice I was wearing it, which in itself hurt a little bit more. But it was hard because it was this thing that I had held on a pedestal for so long of being collared and what it meant for my devotion to them. Mm-hmm. To have that taken away was really hard. Mm-hmm. Especially because I had waited so long to accept it. I had been given the opportunity to wear, I'm doing air quotations, collars before from people who I wasn't so significantly or even as long, longevity-wise involved with, that I had turned down because it was something that when I finally accepted my first collar, I wanted to mean a lot.
Right.
I wanted to see the future with that dynamic, even for the consideration collar. And so it hurt a lot, honestly. And then it was realizing once we kind of had that conversation and dissolved the dynamic, that I couldn't make the choice to put that collar back on anymore.
It didn't belong to you.
It didn't belong to me anymore. It didn't belong to the dynamic anymore. And so it was kind of like that point of no return. We had that conversation that we were going to dissolve the dynamic, that I was no longer going to be collared as his. And there wasn't that safety net of the option for things to get better.
Right.
And so that hurt a lot. And it was actually, Madam Hexe and I had gone to a critter night.
You. And my slave and you.
Yes.
Right before the world shut down.
Right before the world shut down.
Oh, God, it was so long ago now.
Right. But it really was
the longest April
like 3
ever.
months ago. That's the sad part, is it was in March. Like, it was only 4 months, like 5. Oh, we're in 7. 3, 7.
Fine, it's alright.
Okay.
We can't count.
It's okay.
On this to us.
But we were sitting there, and we were talking and everything. And so I'm a kitty. I never really wore collars as a kitten before, because it was that weird in-between. I had, like, a dainty dollar store, like, black velvet with a little gold bell that I wore a few times. Yeah. But it felt wrong to me to have something on my neck, because there are a lot of people who do self-collar. I don't really self-collar.
Okay. So you're not a big not a big on play collar if you're not with somebody.
Yes.
That's fine.
Which is,
I
have nothing against people who do. I know a lot of people who self-collar, and it's really helpful to them. That's just not how my brain works.
Right.
And so I was sitting there, and I realized it was the first time for a long time I had been at an event in general without my collar on. And I looked at her and I go, I'm naked. And she goes, what? I was like, I don't have a collar. I haven't been to a critter romp without a collar. Like, I haven't. And then to put the cherry on top, one of my partner at the time's good friends of ours had come and kind of heard the back end, and she was like, oh, did it break? I can make you a new one, because she was a chainmail worker and a leather worker. And
I just don't need it anymore.
We weren't really announcing to the world yet. I was like, I don't know what to say. We had literally had that conversation, I think, 2 nights prior to me going out.
You weren't ready to let the world know yet, because you guys were still processing.
Right, and so it was one of those things where it was like kind of the lemon juice in the open wound. Yeah. And I just cringed a little bit, and someone started playing with the laser pointer, thankfully, and I ended up diving on the floor, and it was fine.
It was a good distraction.
But it was that realization that I don't have that thing that meant so much to me. And that everyone's so used to seeing.
Right. I have a collar. So in my previous dynamic, my previous long-term dynamic, well, all of my dynamics been long-term, but previous one, I had 2 collars that were more obvious. I had my day collar. I could wear that all the time. But then I had one of the triple ring leather ones that Kaitlyn has. It was teal.
Yes. It was teal.
It was
At least
teal.
they knew you.
Yeah. And then the other one was just a regular leather, a flat leather band collar with a D hook in the middle, or a D ring in the center. So I'm watching you.
Sorry.
Cherries. It's so
I'm trying not to clink too much. I'm
carefully excavating the cherry from
I clink my champagne too much.
So when we split, well, even before that, the training collar that I had worn the entire time we had been together was the collar that he used for all new relationships.
I was going to get back to you.
Yeah. He actually used it on more than one person.
So,
which is very common for a lot of people.
Well, I will say, in our contract, my contract with my slave, any collar I give him is my property.
Yes.
And when a relationship ends, I get my property back. It's the kind of thing. I mean, I don't really want to look at it, but he doesn't get to keep it.
Right. So he kept that one.
Right.
He had actually already given it to another submissive. And then the other collar, the teal one, which is very much me, because it's teal and it's nice and thick. Like me.
Like me.
I did not necessarily want it, but
just because of the memories associated with it?
But he was insistent that
I'm like that
it.
person that keeps all my ex relationships gifts and presents, so that shit's mine now.
It was weird because it's his ownership.
Yes. I guess
of me.
I guess so.
And
I didn't know what to do with it, but I also had some stuffed animals
Did it end badly?
Yes.
Why'd you butt with it?
No, so I haven't done it yet.
That's what I would do. Well, did
Yeah.
it end bad? Why chaos with it? If it ended well, we'll put it on a stuffy. I don't know.
So I had a couple of stuffies, which, unrelated to colors, but recommendation out there, if you're going to do a stuffy, don't do a custom voice box in your stuffy.
No.
Because I have two very, very nice stuffies that I absolutely love.
You roll over on it wrong.
But they both have his voice in them.
Well, that's pretty startling in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
It was really nice when I was with him. It's really gross now.
Mm-hmm.
I have not slept with those since we broke up.
I don't want to roll into it accidentally.
No.
I can do
And I actually
surgery.
kept my collars on the stuff, two
Yeah.
stuffies. They're Build-A-Bears, so they're a little thicker.
yeah, that's kinda
I
cute.
kept them there like when I went to work and such like that. They were like my collar holders.
Yeah. That's cute.
So that's where it's been for like 5 years.
Yeah.
I got kinky stuffies. Who cares? Like, it's cute.
Right.
Yeah. They actually just hide in the closet. Because they fell off a shelf one time and Preston ate it.
Oh.
He ate the collar.
Oh, okay.
I think he has good taste.
Yeah. It's just good taste, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's 5 years later and I still struggle with like, what do I do?
with-
Because it's so pretty. And like, it could be great for camming,
Yeah.
but am I going to feel weird putting it on? Like,
Even if you think of it as a costume piece?
Because at one
because
point
it
it was
had
more
so
than
much
that.
energy in it.
I gotcha.
So that is very similar to kind of what I'm going through right now, because
Make a shadow box.
No, I don't want to remember this thing unless I'm putting the shadow
then get
box
rid of it!
in the like fire
Then
pit.
get rid of it.
Yeah, we'll figure.
So-
Sentimental shit is hard sometimes.
it is.
Not for me, I'll throw it. Whack!
Great. You have to come Komari with me anyway.
I will.
So, I'm kind of in a dilemma because the leather 3-ring collar that I wore for the first year and almost a half-ish that I wore a collar for him, is his. It's very much so. That is his color. It moves from side to side. It was actually, it caused a really big fight at one of the events we were at because after another sub of him, who had been split before their relationship ended as well, they were split before our dynamic started in the dynamic sense, saw me wearing it and freaked the absolute fuck out because she didn't know ahead of time that was his collar.
This is why you write this shit down.
She thought it was her color, and she honestly, and I felt really bad at the time because
Not your fault.
she had thought that he had kept it to remember their relationship. Because it didn't end on bad terms for them. It was life took them in separate directions.
That happens.
But I was always under the impression that at least 3 of his girls had worn it before me. I knew that someone else would probably wear it after me, so that was fine. But we recently moved, and I was cleaning out one of my bags like 3-4 months ago, and I found the chainmail collar that I handmade per his specifications for me to wear in replacement of that leather collar.
Gotcha.
And so I sell chainmail. I sell chainmail collars. That's not a piece I can sell because it's been on me, and I'm not going to put that juju anywhere else.
I mean,
But at the same time,
for a price.
yeah, if you want if you for some reason want my collar not as a collar for someone else, but just because you want a collar that I have worn,
Just for fans account, coming soon.
right?
No,
But
really.
it was one of those things where honestly I was expecting and was ready for the end of our dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't necessarily expecting the end of our relationship, but I knew that it was a possibility because of where we both stood in terms of what we wanted.
Right.
But finding that collar in the bottom of a bag where it had been since I had stopped wearing it 6 months prior.
A little yucky feeling, was it?
Oh, I cried hard.
Right, I feel it.
Because what do I do with it? I could throw it away, but it was a piece that I spent so much time on. Like that.
Do you know a accounting term called sunk cost?
No.
Means I don't care how much it cost you. It's of no value to you now. It's a sunk cost. Chuck it.
So.
That is accounting term. So
Yes.
it's very neutral because
Very
it's a financial
neutral.
term.
Yes.
Sunk costs.
Yeah.
I don't care what it costs you. It's a zero value or negative value. Chuck it.
And so it was just one of those things because you're like 5 years later. It's like it's still fresh. I mean, our dynamic honestly only dissolved like 5 or 6 months ago.
Oh shit! It's only been long. Let me touch real quick with that on the D side real quick.
Yeah.
Another term for your sunk cost is KonMari that shit.
Kamari.
This
Like
is
your
not
mom told me
sparking-
to do. This does not. You did not spark joy. Get
Right,
the fuck out.
KonMari his ass was her
Love
actual.
you, mom, if you're listening.
We already had our breakup episode. So from the D side, for relationships dissolvings, what do you do with the collars? What do you do with the items? So my prior kitten, we did not have the time together to move to that marriage stage. You know, that ownership collar stage. We had a collar that she used that was considered mine. It was symbolic of our relationship. It was a kitten collar, so it was leather. It was a cute little
so
bow
cute.
tie,
I love it.
and it had a bell. I love the bell. Every time she moved her head, it jingled and it made my heart soar. She still has that.
Yes.
You know, because that was her. She picked it out. She bought it. It was symbolic of our relationship, and we're still very, very close. I will always love her.
It ended on very good terms.
It did.
It was just for
the time. It just didn't work out. You know, she was divorcing from her husband. She needed to finish school, and she had to move away to do those things. And I supported that. But, she has a partner now who is like vanilla. But, tries to indulge her a little bit, but the collar she can't wear.
It's
Even
hard.
for like a role play scene, like when he tries to indulge her fantasies and things like that.
Because
She's
it's
like,
not his.
she's like, I can't wear it because it's yours. And she's like, I never want to get rid of it, but
Yeah.
I can't wear it for anybody but you.
Yeah.
And so if she comes to visit and we have a play scene, she can wear it without having, I'm sure like seeing it on her, for me, would give me a bit of feels as well, like, what we had was so beautiful. But it had to end for the time. And I think, how you talked about how painful it was not having the collar on when you took it off. When we had to dissolve our dynamic, and the first time we saw each other, and she had nothing, like, it was hard for me just to see collarbone. Like, it was a bit like,
It's so empty.
oh no,
Make it.
so it's difficult from both ends.
Yeah,
of the stash.
absolutely.
Especially whether it's sad, like a more tragic event or a more kind of mutual split.
Yeah.
It's hard on both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. It's okay, D's and tops. You can be squishy about this.
You can.
We know it's hard. I know it's hard.
Yeah.
I'm a mean old German dominatrix, and it's difficult. So
You're not any less for caring.
In fact, I think you're more.
Yes. It's like the whole, it's not undomly to ask, is this too tight?
Right. Humanity is not a failure as a dom. You had a thought, yeah?
Yeah. So I had one more. Do you care if I get a little bit personal?
I feel like that is a very vague question.
We can cut it out if not.
We go ahead.
I
was like,
well,
personal.
So we get cut before or after we send it?
Personal how? Like my dietary restrictions or like what?
Shout out to Josh, who is our editor.
Right.
Shade Tree Surgeon.
Thank
you.
Happy birthday.
Since we might cut that anyways.
Anyway.
No, and
Go
so
for it,
like
knock stuff out.
going off of not having a collar after having a collar, the first time we played together, or this might have been the second time we played together.
No, that's good. Go with that.
It
I like
touched.
that. No, yeah.
I just didn't know how personal we were
No,
getting.
no, that's fine. I know where you're going with that. That's
So I think it was the second time we played together, and we had discussed the use of a play collar in the scene.
Right, for headspace.
For headspace. And I agreed to it. I thought it would help, especially because I was nervous because it's new
me.
play and it's you, and I hold you so highly. But it was, as Madam Hexe put the play collar on me as part of the start to the scene to help get me in the headspace, it was what she said that stood out so much to me. And honestly, like, I might cry talking about it. This is really bad.
Do you want me to say it? Should I whisper it into the microphone?
Oh, God.
Yes, do it.
Yes?
I just want to hear her sexy whisper because I'll watch you melt.
Right?
Go ahead.
Should I lean in?
Yeah, because I don't think I can say it without crying.
You have your towel, right?
I have my towel, yes, ma'am.
So here's the scene, yeah? In the room, candlelight, music low, Kaitlyn on her knees, and I'm putting this leather, it's a thick leather collar with an O-ring on it, and I'm tightening the collar around her neck. And her hair is to the side, so it's easy for me to put my lips straight against her ear. And as I'm latching the collar, I say to her, for the next hour, within these 4 walls, you belong to me. Did it work?
It did! She's purple! She's not even red. She's purple. And both of our panties are wet. And she's crying.
I asked her, I was like, does that sound good to you? And she's like, yes, ma'am.
But for me,
she said, jawohl, madame.
She's
a good girl.
Thank you, madam. But for me, it was a kind of a important milestone because that was the first time we had played when I was no longer collared.
Yep.
And it was...
Because the first time we played, you were still working things out, yeah?
Yeah. And sorry, I'm all teary-eyed.
Don't
My voice is
apologize.
cracking.
Don't apologize. Apologies are for when you've done something wrong. You've done nothing wrong.
But it was kind of like that important milestone that even after this thing had ended and, well, I hadn't worn a collar, I was still considered his at the time.
Right.
It was kind of that turning point of I can still be wanted after this in
You're
terms
still
of
valued.
that. And I'm
You're
still valued.
desired. You're still wanted.
And so that was, I thought that was important to include because it's, even if there comes a time when you have that breaking point of you are no longer with that person, you are no longer collared to that person, your value doesn't go down at all. It just means someone new is going to see the value in you.
Absolutely. I think that is a fantastic ending. I think that is a high note. She has soaked her towel.
In both areas.
With her tears and her cum. It's fine. Any final thoughts from you, Aemok, for this whole process? Do you think that's a high note to end on?
I think that's a good spot.
I think so too. Well then. In that case, remember,
Trouble comes in 3.
and get fucked. Or collared.
Or collared.